The 860th edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog. Get up to $1,000 deposit match when you sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com and you use promo code MMA SGPN. Hi-yo, degenerinos, and welcome to the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, episode 860. This episode is dedicated to anybody who listened to the last solo episode I did. I want to start by laying down a quick apology. I just listened back to the feedback on that one, and it was pretty clear that it wasn't picking up my microphone right here. It's picking up the mic on my camera, so it sounded like I was underwater for 30 minutes. So if you hung with me through that one, you're going to love this one a lot more. Now, that was the PFL MENA 135-pound episode. We got a 170-pound episode that came out on Sunday. You can go back and listen to both of those if you dare. But today is not about PFL MENA. It's about PFL Europe. That's right. They're giving us two cards this week. We're getting PFL MENA, PFL Europe the day after. That's going to be on July 5th. And we're going to be breaking that one down from Brussels today. I got 6 fights for you this time because we got 4 tournament fights we wanted to hit, 2 showcase fights that we just couldn't do without 2. So I'm going to break down 6 fights for you. Who am I? Of course, Daniel Guppy Freeland here. I am the host of this podcast, the only host who's been on all 860 episodes. Usually, if you're a frequent of the show, you're probably saying, where the hell's Jeff? Where's he at? The guy who cues you up, that gives you the fun banter. He's not here today. He's not going to be here tomorrow either. Our Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday episodes are sadly solo ones until he is back next week. So he's going to be back next week. Plenty of time before UFC Nashville and to give you some regional episodes this week. So this week, we're flying entirely solo, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get winning plays. Doesn't mean you're not going to get winning picks. Doesn't mean you're not going to get the breakdowns you know and love. So without further ado, let me quickly tell you that NASCAR's in-season tournament is here, and we are running a free contest. And if you want to get in on that contest, you can head on over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NASCAR contest for your chance to win a $200 gift card. And make sure to subscribe to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Look, these guys are dropping winners day in and day out. They're absolutely amazing at what they do. And you're going to want to make sure that you're tuning in to everything that you're seeing from them. So once again, that's the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, wherever it is you get your podcasts. So once again, this is coming to you on July the 5th. It's coming from Brussels, Belgium, PFL Europe 2. They are running a tournament that we're going to talk about a little bit here. They got 4 quarterfinal fights, similar to like we talked about with PFL MENA. And then we got 2 fights all the way up top that are going to be given to you with actually some former UFC guys are in. Actually, 2 former UFC guys in there, some hot prospects as well. So without further ado, we better get to the picks. Let us start off in that aforementioned tournament here for the 135-pound PF Europe crown. I believe they get a $100K check if they win the whole thing. You know, it's a big check. What's more fun than a big check? But the first 2 combatants for that are going to be Dean Garnett, and he's going to be fighting Thomas Grönvall. Now, Grönvall is taking this fight on short notice. This was originally Alexander Luster was supposed to be in this fight, but he backed out. Grönvall is the fill-in. So let's give you the breakdown first. No odds for any of these fights at the current moment. Mostly those will drop on all your major books and whatnot as we get a little bit closer to fight time. You'll see those probably Wednesday, Thursday, or something of that nature. So let us start with talking about Grönvall. His nickname's the Tank Engine. 12-8-1. He's got 1 knockout, 6 submissions. He has been knocked out once. As I mentioned before, this fight is being taken on short notice. He's 0-1 in the PFL, 0-2 over his last 3, or over his last 2, rather. 1-3 over his last 4, 2-4 over his last 6. He was 0-1 in Bellator as well, and he made his debut in 2012. Garnett, 12-3. 1 draw. He's got 3 knockouts, 5 submissions. He has been knocked out once and submitted twice. 0-1 in PFL. He is 4-1 in his last 5. He won, he lost by TKO in his last fight. He was a regional champion. 0-1 in Bellator, former 145-pounder, and he made his debut in 2010. So this one's an easy one. it's Garnett all day. He's probably going to come in here, if I had to guess, like a negative 500 favorite. This one's not going to look terribly close, according to the books. And the big reason for me is we've seen Garnett in there against high-level competition. I mentioned he's coming off a loss. That's to the McGrizzla, which you guys know, Lewis McGrillen Evans, who has been, one of the better things to come out of PFL Europe, outside of, the real big names we're talking about. But, like, he fought him in the last fight. He actually dropped him once, which looked really good. He was able to wrestle with him in some really good positions. Like, Garnett looks like he is probably like a semi-decent prospect, or would be if he wasn't 36 years old. He's kind of up there in age. He's 5 years older than Grönvall. But, he dropped the McGrizzla. He wrestled with him a little bit and ultimately couldn't pull that one out. But he's going to be way faster than Grönvall here. And the big problem for me with Grönvall is just like a complete and utter lack of defense. Like, this is a guy, look, he's got submission skills. There's no doubt about that. Like, if he can get you down and he can stay on top of you, and he's good at staying on top of you. Like, he actually fought Kieran Clark in a recent fight. Kieran Clark took his back, was looking to sink in a choke, fell off the top, and Grönvall was able to hold that position. He was able to hold it for a pretty significant amount of time. So that's a little feather in his cap. He's clearly not so bad there. But the problem is that in the meantime, he doesn't defend takedowns. His hands are so far away from his face. He's willing to slug a little bit on the feet, but his hands never go back to his chin in protection. And he's going to be fighting Garnett, a guy who dropped a fighter that's, just recently won the tournament. He's faster than everybody. He hits harder than everybody. And he went in there and was the harder hitter and dropped him. So if Grönvall comes in with that same thing he usually does, where his arms are way out near his shoulders and he's leaning forward with his chin and isn't afraid to get hit, well, I got some news for you. He's going to get hit, and he's going to get hit bad. And I think that's going to be a win for Garnett. So again, I think Garnett's probably going to come out here at like a negative 500 kind of number, which isn't necessarily the most pretty thing. This isn't the thing you're hoping for and pining for necessarily. But at the end of the day, it's good enough, and he will most likely it'll most likely work in your parlays. If you don't like that number, you don't want to work it in your parlays, find someplace with a prop on the KO, because that's probably what's going down here. All right, let's get you the second fight here at bantamweight as part of the bantamweight tournament, and that's Julien Pierre Lopez versus Jan Ciepłowski. Again, always rag on Jeff for the names, but here we are. Having trouble ourselves. So let's start with Lopez. His nickname is Boyka. He is 7-4-1 in his pro career with 2 knockouts, 3 submissions. He has been knocked out once and submitted 3 times, so he owes us some rounds, as Jeff likes to say. 1-1 in the PFL, 2-1 over his last 3, 3-3 over his last 6. He did take a submission loss in his last fight. He's fought 155 pounds, and he made his debut in 2014. Ciepłowski is 8-0 in his pro career. He's making his PFL debut. He's 10 years younger than Lopez. That's right, 10 years younger than Lopez. He's got 1 knockout, 2 submissions to his own name. So I'm going to go big favorite here again. As you can see, maybe by the records, even if you're just a Tapology capper or you're a guy who doesn't put a lot of time into film or effort here, like, you can look at this. 8-0 Polish prospect, 10 years younger than Lopez. You got the French guy coming in with, barely a better than 500 record. Ciepłowski is going to be the one who's the big favorite here. My guess is not even as big as Garnett, though, because Garnett, was already like maybe one of the favorites to win the tournament, and he's fighting a replacement. Ciepłowski, though, is, everything that we want in a prospect. He's got, pretty solid jiu-jitsu. I will say my concern with him as a prospect, and granted, he's only 25 years old, so he's got time to mature. He's a bit frantic. Like, he moves and jerks a lot. Like, he wants to feint, but it's almost like he's spending too much of his energy trying to do that. He can be a little tentative from time to time, but like, I think most of that is him trying to draw out other people's strikes. He's got really quick hands, throws the kicks. He throws them to all 3 levels. So you're going to see them to the calf. You're going to see him to the midsection. You're going to see him kick up high. And then on top of that too, as I mentioned, his grappling's pretty good. And it's not just the jiu-jitsu once he gets you down, but there's clearly some sort of judo background. I don't know if he started training judo as a kid or something like that, but there's like hip toss, trip kind of stuff. And you can see there's like a clear basis in judo there. And for Lopez, just not good at returning fire. He's not good at when somebody clips him getting in there. And he really wants to, I think he himself really wants to wrestle. He really wants to close the distance. He really wants to be in close. I don't think he likes getting hit. And when he does throw too, on top of that, like his hands go out, they don't return to his face, similar to what we're talking about with Grönvall, except for Grönvall's start away from his face, whereas Lopez is starting near his face, but they don't always return there. They return down and low to his chest. So like the striking is probably problematic, especially when fighting a guy with kicks like Ciepłowski. And then on top of that too, like he wants to be in grappling range. And it strikes me that I don't think he's going to be able to grapple Ciepłowski. In fact, if he enters into the clinch and he tries to get in on those legs, or he tries to get in on those hips, or whatever it is he might do to try to make this a little bit harder on Ciepłowski, I think the big problem here in that part of the fight is that the judo background of Ciepłowski is just going to hip toss Lopez. And then Lopez is going to be fighting off of his back. And if Lopez fights this fight off of his back, I think there's a really low chance of him winning it. So let's go with Ciepłowski. If I didn't mention before, my prediction on the odds here, probably like negative 350. Okay, so not quite as big as you're going to see on Garnett, but it's going to be pretty high. Now it takes you through 2 fights, so let's take a quick break and let me tell you about MyBookie. We're brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet on every sport, including the MLB, NBA, WNBA, golf, and of course, football futures. And as we've been talking about MMA, they've always got the best MMA lines in the world out there. They're out the quickest, they're out the earliest, and I absolutely love that about MyBookie. Now, MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of locations, easy deposit, lightning fast payouts using crypto, and as I mentioned, tons of MMA odds. So head on over to MyBookie.ag, use promo code MMA-SGPN for a 100% deposit match of up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. That's MyBookie.ag, promo code MMA-SGPN. And Circa Resort Casino in Las Vegas is giving away the ultimate fantasy football experience for a 12-person league to draft in Vegas and be treated like VIPs for their stay. You'll get a limo ride from the airport in a $5,000, almost cheaped you out of 10% or 10 times of that. $5,000 tab for Stadium Swim, which, of course, the coolest place. If you're watching on YouTube, right there, it's on your screen. It's the coolest place to watch your bets come in, and you're going to get a $5,000 tab there and a hotel stay for you and all 11 of your league mates. And as always, you can get 15% off all the Circa properties with the promo code SGP15. Your last chance to enter the Circa Ultimate Fantasy Football giveaway is coming. And that's at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/circa. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CIRCA. All right, 2 fights down in this bantamweight, not welterweight division, bantamweight division. So we talked about Garnett. We talked about Ciepłowski, and now we're going to talk about a couple of more guys. So we're going to talk about Gustavo Oliveira versus Azizoun. These two are fighting, as I mentioned before, at 135 pounds as part of the tournament. We'll get started with Azizoun first. He's the Rainmaker, 5-1 in his pro career. He's got 2 knockouts, 1 submission. He has been knocked out once. He is making his PFL debut. He did get TKO'd in his last fight. He used to fight at 145 pounds. He's 2 years younger, has a 4 inches of height advantage. Oliveira's nickname is Heart. He's 10-2 with 6 knockouts, 3 submissions. He himself has never been finished. Super durable. He's also making his PFL debut, 2-0 in his last 2 fights, 4-2 in his last 6. Both of those recent wins were TKOs. His last loss came in July of 2022. He has had about a year off before this fight. 0-1 in Muay Thai, 1-1 in combat karate. So with this one here, I'm going to take Gustavo Oliveira. I actually, when I was originally breaking down this fight, I kind of liked Azizoun. And depending on what sort of prices you're going to get them at, like maybe consider Azizoun again. Like if he comes in as a huge underdog, like this fight is pretty close. I was a little wishy-washy on this one, and I'm not typically all that wishy-washy on regional fights. But Azizoun, really long arms. My big problem with his defense is he's so long and used to being the way longer fighter that he's gotten into this really terrible habit of leaning. And, if you've heard me break down fights before, there's almost nothing that is more of an imminent death sentence for regional level fighters who are tall and lanky than being a guy who leans away from strikes. It typically gets you caught. Somebody learns how to close the distance better. It's not fundamentally sound in the way that you lean. And so like we're seeing quite a bit out of that. Now, he is pretty damn dangerous. He's got some really nice step in knees. He himself, when he's letting go moving forward, is tough as hell. You don't want Azizoun moving forward on you. Because like I said, then when you change the rhythm, he's going to step in with the knee. He also unloads combinations as soon as he can get your back to the cage. However, my big problem with him in this fight is I think he's slower than Oliveira. Oliveira, very, very, very fast. Now, I don't always love, and this is why I was wishy-washy on this fight, I don't always love the fact that this dude loves to spin. This is a guy who would love nothing more than to have spinning back kicks to the rib cage, spinning back kicks to the liver, a spinning heel kick to the head. Like this guy loves this stuff. But when he decides to just kickbox, I think he's infinitely faster than Azizoun, and he moves forward quite a bit, which I think takes away Azizoun's best weapon. Azizoun, I think, again, he's really great if he can back you up against the cage. I just don't think you're going to see that Oliveira. Oliveira does not like moving backwards. And then on top of that, too, Oliveira's got some jiu-jitsu in there. Like, it's clear the Portuguese fighter knows how to take things to the ground and work that way. Azizoun, big, tall, lanky guy, kind of leaning all the time. Like, that might be there. I don't know that that's necessarily where Oliveira's going to go because, as I mentioned before, he's a guy who really likes takedowns. He's a guy, or kickboxing, really likes spinning, really likes looking flashy. So, like, that might be his best advantage, and he might not use it, which, again, is sort of why I'm a little wishy-washy on this fight. Honestly, I think we're going to see Oliveira come in as a favorite. My guess is like the -165, -170 range, which means you're only going to get like +140 on his Azizoun, which is why I'm on Oliveira here. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on that one. If you were to tell me Azizoun came in here at +300, +350, people were really doubting him. Maybe the 5-1 record scares the books a little bit like that, or maybe his most recent fight scares the books a little bit. Fine, then maybe you could do a lot worse than your pizza money on Azizoun. But for my money, if this does come in, especially south of $2, I think Gustavo Oliveira is the play all day. All right. Let's get you to the last bantamweight fight here. And that is going to be between Mahio Campanella versus Matiss Zaharovs. They are, as I mentioned before, they are a pair of bantamweights. That's all we've been talking about so far on this episode. So let's start with Campanella, 7-1 in his pro career, 1 knockout, 4 submissions. He has been submitted once on his, or has been submitted once. He is 1-0 in PFL, 4-0 in his last 4 fights. All of those fights coming by finish. He last lost in March of 23. He is a regional champ. He used to fight up at 145 pounds. He's got 2 inches of height, and he's 2 years younger than Zaharovs. Zaharovs, 7-3. He's got 5 knockouts out of those 7 wins and 2 submissions. So this guy owes us some rounds, although he himself has never been finished. He 1-1 in PFL, 3-1 over his last 4, 3-3 over his last 6, though. He did win by submission in his last fight. He used to fight at 125 pounds and 145 pounds. So this one's interesting for me. I'm going to say pick him on this one because I'm having a tough time deciding who's going to be the favorite. On one hand, we got Zaharovs, Russian-sounding last name, despite the fact he's fighting out of Ireland. That does seem to sway the books, as we've talked about time and time again. If this guy sounds like he's, a Russian kickboxer or something, like that's, instantly one of the things that they weigh. The record is better than on Campanella, though. Campanella is, 7-1 versus 7-3, so that's going to swing things in his favor a little. We have seen Zaharovs and Brave, though, so he's got some high-level competition. So I'm going to say pick him. I just think the resumes of these guys kind of even out. And I'm going to go with Campanella. And in fact, this might be one of my favorite plays on this card, especially if we can get him down close to even money. The Zaharovs, look, he's got decent wrestling. He's got the OV in his name, right? Obviously he's got decent wrestling. But when he fought, he also fought the McGrizzla. We get another McGrizzla sighting in here. He also fought the McGrizzla, and when he fought the McGrizzla, he had a lot of trouble with the speed and the sharpness. And again, fair play to him. That's a tough opponent. But I find Zaharovs to be a very average striker and better wrestler. But again, his instinct seems to be to strike more often than it is to wrestle. And I think that's a problem here. Maybe it's has to do with his training in Ireland or whatever it might be. But yeah, I just think I think he tends to decide to strike way too much. And then on the other side too, Campanella is a really sharp wrestler. In fact, I think he's probably a better wrestler than Zaharovs. He does a really good job of when he gets to your hips, he cuts angles. So a lot of times you'll see a guy who shoots takedowns, he gets to your hips, he just keeps pushing through and pushing through and eventually gets a takedown to get you up against the cage and finishes it there. That's not the worst thing in the world, right? Like, as long as you get the takedown, I guess you're in a good spot. But what Campanella does is he gets a hold of your legs and he cuts the angle to the side so that your opponent can't keep his feet anymore and he just falls down. That does two things. First of all, it gets the takedown to the center of the cage where somebody can't wall walk up. And the other thing that it does that I really like about it is it's quicker and it's less energy. So both of those things working for Campanella. He's way faster than Zaharovs, particularly on the feet. Love the way he rips the legs. I think if he does that early in the fight, Zaharovs is going to have a tough time getting takedowns. He did have a little bit of issue when somebody was like pushing into him and bringing big energy and big pressure. I don't think Zaharovs is that type of fighter, but it's worth mentioning that he did have a little bit of an issue with it. But at the end of the day, I think the sharp kicks of Campanella mixed with the fact that I think he's a better, more efficient kind of wrestler than Zaharovs, I think it's going to get us there. So give me Mahio Campanella. Now, we are going to get to the two feature fights. Don't get me wrong. We're not just doing tournament fights here. So let me get to those just after I tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog's Best Ball Mania is happening all summer long and giving away $15 million in prizes, including $2 million to first place. No waiver wire. No arguments about trades. Best Ball is the best place to play fantasy football. Underdog is also a great place to play Pick'em. They've got Pick'em for every sport imaginable. You cannot believe how many they got. And, hey, I've been dabbling in golf a little bit lately. I'm going to take Hideki Matsuyama, who had a real good first two rounds, not so much third, but real good first two rounds at the Rocket Mortgage over this last weekend. So I'm going to take the lower than on his strokes this upcoming weekend. So give me Hideki Matsuyama's lower than on his strokes. And you can get in on that pick as well when you sign up using promo code MMA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus credits. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. And you've heard us talk about Rhythm on here before, and they just dropped a game-changing feature called Power Trends. These are AI-detected patterns where Rhythm's model has consistently won and has a high return on investment. Think a strikeout prop that wins 59% of the time when the line and win probability hit a certain range. Power Trends are updated daily and are exclusive to Rhythm. No touts, no noise, just clean data-backed bets. Download the Rhythm app, check out Power Trends, and start betting smarter. You know we will be. I was ragging on the Braves starters recently, talking to Jeff about it on this very show. And then I flipped on Power Trends and checked out what Rhythm had for us. And they're like, hey, get in on Spencer Schwellenbach and how many times he's going to strike out the Mets. And what do we see? We see him strike him out 12, hold him to one run. It's like they knew even before I knew. And I'm supposed to be the guy who's got lots of faith in the Braves. So make sure you're not slipping by going to Rhythm. And you can get a 7-day free trial of that by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, as I said, we got two more fights we're going to get to you here. First one, we're going to talk about former UFC veteran Taylor Lapilus versus Ali Taleb. If somebody wants to tell me why this isn't just in the 135-pound tournament, I'd love to know. One of them fights out of Sweden. One of them fights out of France. They happen to be at 135 pounds. But yeah, here we are in a featured fight that has nothing to do with it. So let's talk about it anyway. We'll start with Lapilus. Lapilus is double impact. He's 21-4. He's got 4 knockouts, 6 submissions. He himself has never been finished in his 25-fight career. This is going to be his PFL debut. 2-0 in his last 2, 8-1 in his last 9. He was 6-2 in the UFC before departing due to contract issues. He's a multiple regional championships on his mantle. He's a former 145-pounder. He made his debut in 2012, and he's got 4 inches of height over Taleb. Taleb is 12-1, 7 knockouts, 3 submissions. He himself has also never been finished. He's 5-1 in PFL. He was the 2024 PFL MENA champion. Because of his background, they let him fight in PFL MENA. And now he's here fighting PFL Europe, but in a joke. It's dumb. Don't give Don Davis any credit for anything. He's 3-0 in his last 3. He's got 2 straight TKOs. He's a regional champ, 5 years younger, and he's got 1 inch of height over Lapilus. So this is going to be, I think I took what I considered to be a pick'em before with Campanella. This is going to be my first underdog play. I think Taylor Lapilus, his UFC credentials, the fact that he was 6-2 in the UFC, they're going to weigh heavily on the bookmakers. But I'm going to take the younger, faster, stronger Ali Taleb in this one. Because, you watch Lapilus, even in his wins in the UFC, this is a guy who likes to move forward. He occasionally gets his takedowns. He works really hard for everything he gets. He's dedicated to scoring that takedown once he started it. And on the other hand, Taleb, I mean, it's simple. This guy throws bungalows. This guy throws bombs, and he knocks people's blocks off. And I think Lapilus is hittable enough that he's going to get hit by something on the way in, looking for those takedowns or looking to close the distance. And, I know he's got quite a bit of reach here. The 4 inches of reach shouldn't hurt. But, Taleb closes distance really well because he's got a lot of aggression and he is really tough. And also, we've seen, that he's so physically strong that even when somebody gets in on a takedown on him, they're not really having all that much success here. So I'm going to take Ali Taleb. I do think this line will be close. Taleb being the PFL MENA champion, I think will mean something, not enough to overcome the 8-fight career in the UFC for Taylor Lapilus. So I'm going to say Taleb maybe plus 175, and who knows, maybe the money will come in on Lapilus and we'll get even a better number come fight time. So those are my predictions on the odds. All right, and that brings us to our last fight. We got another UFC veteran here. Of course, I'm talking about Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. He's going to be fighting Patrick Habirora. So let's start with Hot Chocolate first. He is 18-8 in his pro career, 8 knockouts, 5 submissions. He has been knocked out 5 times. Bookmark that one. We're going to talk about that in a second. He's also been submitted twice. This is his PFL debut. 0-3 in his last 3. 2-5 in his last 7. He last won in October of 2021, and he's been out of the cage for almost 2 full years. 7-7 in the UFC, and he made his debut in 2010. Habirora is the Belgian bomber, 6-0 in the UFC. 5 of those 6 wins are by knockout, 2-0 in the PFL. He's got 4 straight TKO victories. He used to fight at 55 and 65. This one's going to be at 70. He's got 1 inch of height, and he is 14 years younger than Danny Roberts. He's only 23 as Habirora. And this one's Habirora all day for me. I actually, we were just talking about in that last fight, the fact that I was like, perhaps we'll see, Ali Taleb come as an underdog because he's fighting a UFC veteran. And at first I kind of had the same feeling about this one. I was like, who knows? Maybe we'll get Habirora as a slight underdog because he's fighting a UFC veteran. And then I watched the film and I'm like, the books are going to love this Habirora guy. He is an absolute dynamo on the feet. My only concern about him in the long term is I haven't really seen him wrestle with anybody who's halfway decent at wrestling. I went back to watch some Danny Roberts film to be like, could he wrestle enough to win this fight? Could he is he a good enough wrestler that I could squint and be pick him? And I don't think so. And on top of that, having been knocked out in 5 of his 8 losses, that's a real concern for me here too. Because Habirora he hits so freaking hard. He's so tough when he clips you. And Danny Roberts has been knocked out by better strikers than Habirora, but we've talked about this time and time again. Those are cumulative. Those build on you over time. So I don't necessarily think the fact that there's been some time since those is good for him. I think he's primed to get knocked out here again. Again, I don't necessarily know too much about the grappling, but I think if this stays on the feet, you're going to see a much faster, much rangier, much sharper striker in Habirora. And the way he brings, the knockouts, go watch a couple of his highlights if you haven't already. The knockouts are devastating. They are, he doesn't just hit you a little bit. He gives them the Jack Hermanson treatment. No offense to Jack Hermanson. I'm glad he stood up after all of that. But yeah, Habirora, he's the pick here. My guess, though, maybe let's pray that the UFC background of Hot Chocolate pulls that number down a little bit. We'll say negative 175 on Habirora. So let me recap those fights for you real quick, and then I got 3 quick lightning round picks for you. So we're going to Habirora, Taleb, Campanella, Oliveira, Ciepłowski, and Garnett. Now, lightning round, this is the one where I don't give you very much background on the fights, but I am going to give you 3 additional picks. I like Salvatore Liga. Salvatore Liga, real tough, 5-0, hasn't gotten a lot of chances. He's going to be fighting Gaetano Perello, who fought in the UFC. Might be able to get a good number on him there. I like Chiquina Noso Pedro. Guy's super strong and has fought at some really high level, including some fights in Brave. And then Ibragimov, name kind of says it all. Fighter out of Britain. But he's really tough, and we've seen him fight some really good fights. So that's Noso Pedro, Ibragimov, and Liga as our lightning round plays. And that's going to do it for our PFL Europe show. We hope you guys enjoyed. The sound quality was a little bit better in this one. You can check out all information about PFL, but also betting on anything at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. I'm dropping articles there every single day, underdog fantasy, NRFIs, best bets, all kinds of things. So make sure you check out my writing and Jeff Fox writing over there, the usual co-host. He is out today, but remember to check out his Substack, moneymma.substack.com. Cool contests over there, information about fighter payouts and whatnot. And you can check out my other podcast. That's at Top Turtle MMA on all the social medias, but also you can just check it out wherever you get podcasts. We're going to be talking to the aforementioned Salvatore Liga, as well as Anthony Guarasio, who is fighting on Contender Series in the summer. And remember to check out me on Twitter at Gumby Vreeland, him on Twitter at Jeff Fox Writer. And of course, you can check out the show at SGPN MMA on Twitter as well. Until tomorrow, which we're going to be doing one more show. We got Aries, which if some of you know is already the bane of my existence. We got an Aries 33 show coming at you tomorrow. I'm Dana Gumby Vreeland without Jeff Fox this week, and I'll catch you tomorrow.